Shall I introduce myself then again? My name is Maarten van Herwerde, almost 60 years old. 50 years exactly this year I am beekeeper in Holland, in the Netherlands. I'm also chairman of the Professional Beekeepers Organization in Holland. We started that organization 10 years ago because we see there is a need for professional beekeepers to have their own organization. Of course, we have courses for pollination, but professional beekeepers have other questions about the government and pesticides and how to use let's work the pesticides together with the bees and all that kind of stuff. And of course, we have always a commercial drive, and that's something else than people who have only a few hives for their hobby. So 10 years ago, we started with the BVNI. And I was also by myself a professional beekeeper specialized in pollination. We do a lot of crops in greenhouses in Holland, in the Netherlands. Of course, zucchini and eggplants and strawberries and blueberries. That's the normal stuff. But we also have some specialized food for the Indonesian market. We call it bittergourd. But also vanilla, of course, that's something special. Natural vanilla is very expensive, so our growers try to put that in the greenhouse, and they need pollinators for that, so that demands specialized insects. Naturally, they use the Melipona bees for that, and the Mexican colibris, the birds. The hummingbirds, I believe they call them in English. But we've also other specialized needs of pollinators. I'm also, for a few years, I was imported solitary bees from Canada, and we use them for specialized pollination jobs in the greenhouses. So that's a short introduction of myself. Are there any questions after last week, November the 11th? Is there anybody who has a question about it? Of course, some questions which were raised during our last meeting, I will discuss them in the new presentation today. But I'm not sure if there are any other questions.
Maybe people can ask on the course or in the end of more if this. At least I didn't get any additional on the way, but of course, if there is some new, you can of course ask anytime.
Okay.
Questions, and you had a good system that you ask after every subject that if you have any questions. But can I ask about that? Is how many professional beekeepers you have in your association?
Oh, only a few, about 20 beekeepers. Mm-hmm. And it's also a mix of pollinating beekeepers, honey beekeepers, beekeepers that will raise their stocks, or a combination. So we have different types of professional beekeepers.
So there is professional beekeepers who are doing only pollination service.
Yeah. Okay. And we have also let's say, not everybody is able to be a member of our professional beekeepers organization, because you have to have at least 300 beehives. That's the minimum. You have to do it professional, so it is your main income for money. That's also a limit. You have to be at least for 5 years a beekeeper. So you have to be a little bit experienced. But of course, if you have 300 beehives, you have to be a little bit experienced. Otherwise, it's not possible.
You get the experience quite quickly.
Yeah. Of course, we have a lot of beekeepers here in Holland with 50 or 100 beehives, but that's not enough to be a member of our professional beekeepers organization. Okay, then we start with the questions which are raised after last week, or somebody asked me to get more information about it. One of the questions last week was that strawberries and raspberries are the main fruit in Finland. And somebody asked me to tell more about those two types of fruit. Yes, thank you, Marita. Blackberries and raspberries fall under the genus Rubus. That's, of course, familiar to you. But they are also be called false fruits. The seeds are actually artificial fruit, and the flesh around them that provide protection to the seeds. And the blackberries and the raspberries are among the most vulnerable soft fruit varieties. Of course, you know the illness of botrytis. If it's very soft and weakened fruit, so you have to be careful during picking it up for the plant. I put a photo on it that each individual pistil, as the female flower part, must be pollinated. That's something else than a normal flower or a normal fruit, like an eggplant, for instance. There's only one pollination is enough. But at raspberries and blackberries, every flower has to be pollinated around 20 times. And during that pollination, more of those so-called pistils are pollinated. So every pistil develops its own seed, and that's the small parts you get in your mouth when you are eating a raspberry or a blackberry. Strawberries depends on their race, 50 till 500 pistils. Pistils. It's an unknown word for us in Holland. A pistil. For instance, the Elsanta is a very famous strawberry type of strawberry, and it has approximately 180 pistils. So they have to be kneaded several times, pollinated, to get a good strawberry. The bee makes a pollination tour on the flower twice a day, and that during a period of 5 till 6 days. So you can imagine what was happening with that raspberry or strawberry. Strawberries are not self-pollinators. Many people think that strawberries are self-pollinators. Of course, that's possible, but to have a nice strawberry, big red, equal in form strawberry, it has to be pollinated by an insect. And the reason for that is that the pistil, so it's the female part of the flower, is ripe earlier than the anthers of the male parts of the flower. And after each day of pollination, the base of the strawberry flower continues to grow and the strawberry is formed. So it's growing from down to up. Any questions about this? About the pollination of the strawberry and the raspberries?
What do you mean that the bees make pollination tour of the flower twice a day? Is this is it just for any kind of pollination for all kinds of flowers, but only for strawberries?
Yeah, that's correct. For instance, an eggplant has to be pollinated only one time. And then the eggplant will form that the vegetable, or called fruit, but we call it a vegetable. And it's done. The job is done. But for a strawberry and a raspberry, during a period of 5 till 6 days, twice a day, so that is between 10 and 12 times, a bee or bumblebee, that's also possible, has to visit the flower, the same flower. And during that pollination trip, 2 times a day, it pollinates several pistils around the flower, in the base of the flower, to take care that the pollination is done correctly and the correct strawberry is formed. So that's something else as a normal flower, a strawberry and a raspberry. And for that reason, it's also called a false fruit.
So are the pistils ready for pollination different time? Is it starting from the bottom, or how do you call it, from, or is it ready the whole flower? All the pistils are ready at the same time?
No, what you're saying is right. That several pistils are ripe for pollination during the morning, for instance. During the afternoon, another round of pistils is ripe for pollination. And the base of the flower is growing up. That's the reason it's called false fruit. And it's growing up. And the next day it's done again. And that's for a period of 5 till 6 days. And then the total job is done.
Okay, so the bees have to work with the same flower many times.
Yeah. 180 for an El Santa.
Okay.
The same flower, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But was the same thing for the raspberries too?
Yeah, that's the same. That's correct. There was also a question about, let's say, what was it? Oh, that's later on. Anyway, rapid flowering of the flower is an indication of good pollination. The petals, that's the leaves of the flower on the outside, detach quickly. So that's an indication that you know the pollination is done. And also a brown discoloration around the flower heads from the outside is an indication of the insect visit. And furthermore, you have to be to see in the greenhouse what's happening at the beehives during visiting of the flowers, the flying behavior. So there are 3 indicators which can be used to see if the pollination is done correctly. Rapid flowering of the flower, of course, a brown discoloration around the flower heads, and the bee behavior in the flowers and at the beehive. Okay, there's also a note to make. Take care of bumblebees. So watch out for bumblebees. Bumblebees have no limit. It means that they can visit the same flower. Of course, bees also visit the same flower. That's what I told you before. But bumblebees can make a kind of aggressive flower pollination, and it will make damage on the flower, and it make damage on the fruit. And we call it in Holland overflight. And you see that bumblebees make bite marks on the flower. I assume that's known to you.
Now, what kind of marks are they? How can you distinguish the bite marks? Are they in this white part of the flower, or I don't know the English name for that?
On the pistil, they make bite marks on the pistil.
Okay.
And that will give damage to the fruit, to the strawberries. if you're looking for overflight of bumblebees, you get a lot of information about it. But that's also possible with tomato flowers, huh? And that's the reason in Holland we don't use honeybees for pollination of tomato flowers. We use only bumblebees for it. But the reason to prevent overflight by bumblebees, because of course 1 week you have a lot of flowers, the next week you get less flowers on the same tomato plants. It depends how many tomatoes are hanging already on the plant. It's genetic, no, it's called genetic grow. Anyway, we have to regulate how many bumblebees can visit the tomato flowers. And that's done by automatically opening and closure of the bumblebees boxes. Do you have such a system in Finland?
I haven't seen. No, I don't know. It may be.
Okay.
Does anyone listeners know?
Do you mean like, can you control, can the bumblebees go outside or inside?
No,
Yeah.
but maybe, or is this that just their nest, this box where bumblebees are, so you just automatically close the doors so that they can't go out, or what?
Yeah, that's just, that's an automatic system. For instance, if you have 10 boxes per acre bumblebees in a greenhouse, and next week there are less flowers, you can put, for instance, the first 5 boxes only opening in the morning, and the next 5 boxes opening only in the afternoon. So the bumblebees can only go in and not go out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I think, quite normal for many farmers who are used to using bumblebees, these packaged bumblebees. I think they do that.
Okay. Okay. Because honeybees don't overflight flowers. They stop. There is no need for bumblebees for honeybees to overflight flowers, because they have stock of pollen and nectar enough in their beehives, and bumblebees don't have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. If there are any questions about the first part, strawberries and raspberries. Okay, we start then with B. Last week there was a question about that my colleague Aad will replace 80% of his queens after the pollination season. It was not familiar to me, so I asked Aad, but he don't change queens after the pollination season. Of course, when the queen is old, or it's an irregular brood nest, or another technical reason, he replaces the queens, but it's not a common situation to replace queens after pollination season, no.
So he didn't tell anything, this kind of need for a huge amount of change of queens.
No. And one of the people who attended last week was thinking it was told in Sweden and not in Holland. The guy with the French name. Okay. Any questions about B? Can we go further to C?
Yeah.
Okay. The question was, are there in the Netherlands beekeepers that are specialized in the only pollination services without other services and products? Yes, that's correct. a number of highly specialized beekeepers who focused only on pollination, so not on honey production or growing up bee colonies. The reason is also that it's possible at our country, because in the greenhouses strawberries and raspberries are pollinated all year round during summer and winter. And eggplant and zucchini started in March and April, till end of August. Cherries in the greenhouse is only a short period from 10 days, but that's mostly about March. Apples and pears and cherries are outside. That's in the period April and May. Ilex. That's are you familiar with ilex? Anyway, the pollination is during the month June, and seed cultivations are started in March till September, etc., etc. So there's always something to be pollinated in Holland, inside or outside. Of course, there's nothing to do outside in the period between September till March, because it's too cold also. But inside the greenhouses there are always something to do, and that makes it also profitable for our pollination beekeepers to make it a full-time job. But there are also a combination of beekeepers that their overstock of pollination hives will be used to get some honey, of course. There's also Any questions about this? Okay, we start then with D. Is there a difference in behavior development of local Carnica or Buckfast bees? That's also a question of last week. And that's specialized to pollination. That was the reason why somebody asked it. What we see with Buckfast, the crossbreed, it responds by converting energy in brood. So they start very quickly with the brood nest, which causes the colony a quick lose their balance due, for example, excessive loss of flying bees, foraging bees, less flowers, etc., etc. So they start early with a lot of eggs, with a lot of brood. But if something is changed outside of the bee colony, less flowers, or something is happening with the bees who are flying for nectar and pollen, and they don't come back or something, there is a disbalance in the Buckfast nest, and it will give a lot of problems. So mostly Buckfast are not used by commercial beekeepers for pollination. Carnica, that's something else, that's a breed, not a crossbreed, adapts more easily to changing conditions, such as climate, and they have a regular feed consumption, and they can reduce much easier the breeding nest. And that's the same for the local black bees or hybrids. We've also a lot of Italian blood in our bees. They more have an adaptive behavior like the Carnica breed. Questions about this?
Do you have Italian bees there? Are they suitable? Because the most of the honeybees are Italian in Finland.
Yeah, we have also Italian bees, or it could be a mix between our local bees and Italian bees. We have also Italian breeds, and they are perfect for pollination in the greenhouses.
Okay. But do you think that the Carnica are the best?
It makes no difference between the Italian and the Carnicas.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Questions about this? Okay. We go then to E. The question was how many honeybee nests do survive the winter period after they were used in the greenhouse pollination? So that's the next year. There are too many variables to make a statement about this. Until what time of the year the colonies were used in the greenhouse, you can imagine if they use them in summer, in June, there's no problem. They will be healthy and fit again for next year. But if they are coming out in September, October, yeah, they are not healthy anymore. And the period between October and winter start is too short, and we have not flowers enough to get healthy again. So what we are thinking about it, bee colonies rented after the August period will be lost during winter. And I don't know exactly how that it will be for Finland, because your winter is starting earlier. So I can also imagine that the month of August will be maybe July or something like that in Finland.
Yes, I think that maybe even the July, because you have to have the colony in good strength in the end of or in the beginning of August. We start the winter feeding in the mid-August, and it has to be quite strong at that time.
Okay. What we try is something to sometimes we try to put some old beehives together, the colonies, the old bee colonies together, so they have a minimum of a lot of bees. They are not healthy, of course, but they have that in any case. They have enough bees to adapt their food quickly and to keep each other warm during winter period, and that's what we try. But we count on it. It will be not survive the winter period.
What do you mean that they are not healthy? That do you mean that real about the healthy or the that there is not enough brood or it's not in good condition?
As you know, bees in summer will be something happening within the bees. In summer, a bee will be 3 weeks old, and in winter period, they will be 4 or 5 months old. And the difference is that in summer period, they have to feed a lot of brood. It will cost their own energy and their own fat. How you call it, fat in English?
Yes. It's they have fat and
it's
brown fat
yeah.
and yes.
Yeah. So if they have to take care of their brood, it costs their own fat, and that means that they are not healthy to survive the winter.
Okay.
And for that reason, winter bees have a lot of fat for their own for their own health.
Yeah.
And if bees are used for pollination in, let's say, October in the greenhouse, and they also have a lot of brood to take care, and they're coming out of the greenhouse, the period to get a new generation of healthy bees with enough fat for the winter period is too short.
Yes, I understand.
Yep.
So it's we call it that the or teach beekeepers that the young bees which are going to be winter bees, they have to get very good a lot of pollen so that they can get this fat body also.
and especially not only a lot of pollen, but also a great variety. Variety of pollen. That's more.
Yes, different source of from many plants.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
That's very important. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If there are no questions about E, we start then with F. Oh yeah, that's a nice question. Beehives with the option of allowing the bees to fly inside and outside the greenhouse in a regulated manner. Yes, we know that the possibility. Excuse me. The beehives are placed in such a way that the fly hole, when they go in and out, of course, extends half into the greenhouse and half outside the greenhouse. So the bees can choose if they're flying inside the greenhouse or outside the greenhouse. Sometime years ago we tried this method, but these days not anymore, because a good pollination always has the priority above the survival rate of the bee colony. So the financial benefits for the keeper of the greenhouse is more important than the survival rate of the bee colonies. So we put them 100% in the greenhouse, and of course that costs a lot of bees. But during the summer period, on the top of the greenhouse, one or two of those one of the windows are opened, so the bees can always go in and outside. That's what we discussed also last week. That is enough to give the bees the opportunity, if they are outside, to come inside when the rest of the greenhouse is closed. Only one or two windows above the beehives are continuously opened. Okay, questions about this? Okay, so we have a little bit of pause, Marita. We are now started for 45 minutes, so 5 minutes pause, and then we start again with the rest of the lessons, the lecture.
Yes, we can keep 5-minute pause.
Yeah, okay.
Do we come back at 18:50?
Yeah,
it's
okay.
6 minutes. Okay.
Okay, yeah. What do you think, Marita? Is everybody back again?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, then we started with the new education of this week, lecture of this week. One of the subjects was education. What kind of education do you give to beekeepers about greenhouse beekeeping? And do you have a specific education program for greenhouse beekeeping? Of course, we have the specialized pollinator beekeepers course. This course is mainly aimed at beekeepers who want to increase and deepen their knowledge about the field of pollination, of agriculture and horticulture crops. So that's the horticulture are the crops in the greenhouses. And the content of the course was also a question. Now, this course covers the following components: the flower biologically, pollination, fertilization of insects and wind pollination, use and care of bee colonies before, during and after pollination, of crops in open and protected crops. So the protected crops are again in the greenhouses. That's what is meant. Pollination of large and small fruits, vegetables, crops, seed crops, ornamental crops, and herbal crops. Climate control is important, of course. Crop protection, pesticides, use of pesticides. Pollination arrangements, bee diseases, preventive and curative measures, recognition of deviations and problems and solving them in consultation with the grower, economic aspects for the pollination beekeeper, and duration and structure of the course. The lessons are provided practice oriented, and the course consists of approximately 18 hours of lessons and 4 practical sessions. And the entry requirements for the pollination course is a completed basic course. That's the first course which you can follow as a beekeeper. The advanced beekeeping course, so that's the follow-up. And if desired, the Mehiläispölytys plant course, that's a specific course for plant pollination and plant physica. And to practice it, it is expected that you have cared for 5 or more bee colonies during 5 years. So we have some practical experience. And the end of the pollination course, you get a diploma, a license. It's called pollinator beekeeper, and it's also awarded. And a certificate is awarded if sufficient practical and theoretical knowledge is tested in an exam. And those who passes the exam receive their license. And that is valid for only 5 years and must be take at least 4 refreshment lessons within those 5 years to maintain their license. So they will keep their not only their experience in practice, but also their theoretical knowledge to get them again a license. I can imagine that there are some questions about this.
I have one question. In Netherlands, are there beekeepers who provide this pollination in greenhouses, but they haven't gone through this degree?
Yeah.
Or so they are, okay.
Yeah.
Is it generally known within farmers in Netherlands that there are beekeepers who are educated in this, and also there are those who are not? Are they picky, so to speak?
No, it's but of course a grower is free to choose their own beekeeper. It's not done by the government or something like that. But what you see is that the specialized seed growers, they asking for a licensed beekeeper, because sometimes there are problems with the bees or with the crops, and you have to troubleshoot what is the reason that the bees don't fly. And of course we can look at our beehives and see if there's enough brood. Is there a queen? Is there eggs? Are there enough flying bees? Are there pollen? Is it too warm? Is it located on a hot spot in the direct sun, of course, for instance, or something else? But you also have to imagine that crops need water, and if they don't have water, they don't have nectar, and if they don't have nectar, the bees are not flying. So that part of the plant physica you have to understand also as a beekeeper.
Yes, I understand. This is that so the farmer can be more sure about that the beekeeper knows what he or she is doing. And
yeah.
So when you say license, you mean certification?
Yes. What was the question? Sorry.
Like when you say license, you mean it's a certification. It's not like a license that is required. It's a certification that provides competence, as in that's like a show of competence, but it's not like a license that is required by the government in order to do it.
No, that's true.
Oh,
It's not
okay.
required by the government. No.
Yeah.
So and what does this one practical? You said the course is. Can you put it a little bit backwards, Amelie? This text that there was about the course that it will be 18 lessons and some practical. For practical sessions. Is this one practical session is some 2-hour meet or what is it? Is it the whole day session or what kind of sessions?
Okay. Yeah, during the practical sessions, we're not working in the bees, but what we are doing, we're visiting growers, seed growers, vegetable growers, fruit growers. And we have a discussion with all the people who attended the course and who is giving the course and the grower itself. We visit the crops, see what's going on and what are the conditions and what are the possible mistakes which we'll make. And that's the practical part of pollination lessons for the 4 practical lessons.
Okay. And all these, what is in this list before is this 18-hour lectures?
I don't understand your question.
So all these, you are dealing all the other things here, this climate control, crop protection, pollination arrangements, diseases, and all those things. You are discussing about them in these lessons, these lectures.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And we have also books for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they are in which language they are?
They are in Dutch.
Mm-hmm. Do you know any?
This is one of those books, and it consists about 320 pages.
Okay. And what is the name of the book? It was the. Is it?
It's called in Dutch Bloeiend Leven. And this was the formal book. It's an older one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's called Pollination in Agriculture and Horticulture Crops by Honeybees. And they're also discussing, I don't know if it's possible to see for you, but
something very
strawberry stems and pollen and something like that. To do some test if the flowers are ripe for pollination, but also apples, correct apples and incorrect apples. How you can determine them? And
so, is this in English? Do you know? Is this kind of book in English also?
No, it's only in Dutch in the Netherlands, not in English.
We need some Dutch who is translating these books. Can you send the picture of the book so we can try to find about this also, and maybe if we have translator, we can.
Yeah, they are protected because it's a quite new book also. The last one.
Yes. But of course, if agreement with the writers.
Okay, so that's about the license and the lessons. Are there more questions about it? Okay, then we start with the environmental conditions during pollination. What are the most important conditions in the greenhouse for good pollination? That was one of the questions. There are a lot of conditions, and of course, yeah, what's important? It's important that everything is okay. That's important. A specific percentage of flowering. Sometimes when it's early in spring, you place the beehives before the flowering is started. That's what we discussed also last week. 1 week before. But if it's in the middle of the summer, you can place them if there's 5% of the flowers are flowering at that moment. Of course, not with zucchinis, because if you are way too long with zucchinis, you don't have any zucchinis at all. Because at the moment it started with flowering, and you have enough male flowers, you have to put the bees directly on it. Temperature is also important. In the greenhouse, it should be 20 degrees Celsius. Outside, bees will fly around 9 degrees Celsius, but inside they are flying around 16 degrees. But ideal is 20 degrees, 25 degrees Celsius. Amount of type of light is important. Bees use UV light for orientation, and they don't see any so-called red light. It's another spectrum. Plants need red light, and bees use UV light. But there is a range that the crops grow perfect, and the bees can orientate. So that's the important rate in the UV or in the light spectrum. You have to take care that will be the conditions at pollination. The location of the colonies in the greenhouse should be on a bright spot, because what I told before, they use UV light, so you can't put the beehives under the crops. For instance, under the strawberry plants, that is not a good place. You have to put them on the same level as the crops. That's most ideal, or a little bit above the crops. But of course, in summer period, you have to take care that it will be not too hot in the beehive, because if it's too hot by the direct sun, a lot of bees will look for water, and they don't visit flowers at that moment. Excuse me. Young plants may contain a pesticide residue, which is negative for bees. The young plants are grown up by specific growers. They are not the fruit growers, but they are plant growers, what we call it in Holland. And it's possible that they will protect the young plants by, let's say, abamectin or something like that, against thrips or against spider mites or something like that. But that will give a residue to the strawberry plants, and if the strawberry plants are then sold to the strawberry fruit grower, and there can be still a residue of the abamectin on the plant, and that can have an influence on the pollination of the bees. So that's also important. Something else, what we called last week also, was pulling male willow, the salix, catechins, into the flowers. That will stimulate the bees. The importance of humidity in the greenhouse is very important, of course, for the plants itself, but also for the bees. Humidity is in the ideal situation around 70%. But if there is an east wind, and it will mostly be in our early spring period, we have a lot of east wind, and also the sun can have very negative influence on this humidity in only a few minutes. So you have to take care of it. And if humidity drops, it can drop from 70 till 30%. The flower stops with blooming, stopping with nectar. Pollens are not any good enough for pollination, and the bees also stop with flying. And in the plastic tunnel greenhouse, many bees are lost unnecessarily because they stick to the condensation on the droplet condensation on the plastic. These are another point is be aware of the energy screens in the greenhouse. In the top of the greenhouse there are energy screens. Sometimes they will take care that we don't need so much gas for heating the greenhouse. Sometimes those energies are used for screening out the too much sun, or a combination between those things. But they also can have a negative impact on the bees. It will give orientation problems and often result during daytime if the screens are open near. If the screens are open, the bees come up between the glass and the energy screens and they are lost. And for that reason, directly above the beehives, the same as the windows in the glass, are continuously open to give the bees the opportunity to go back to the beehive. Otherwise, we lost too much bees. To help the bees by orientation, yellow or blue ribbons are used directly above the beehives to give the bees an orientation point. It can also be done by triangle beacons. It's a specific form of a beacon. You can imagine if the bees are flying in 50,000 square meters of eggplants, everything looked the same. And an yellow or blue ribbon or a triangle beacon can be very helpful to get the bees back to their beehives. CO2 values, which were produced by heating heating engines for heating the greenhouse. This value is higher than 2,500 dots per million. Bees will become dazed, and it will be so be careful with the hot air heaters. And always place and remove the bee colonies during the evening or night in and outside the beehives. For instance, if a grower calls me to bring the bees, I always bring the bees after in the evening. Of course, the bees are then also in the beehives because they're standing outside here in the garden or where else. After the bees are all inside the beehive, we close the beehive and then we bring them to the grower, and then it's open in the dark in the greenhouse, so the bees don't fly directly in the greenhouse because everything is dark. And the next morning they start flying, and they can orientate on a very calm way, and it prevents that we have a loss of bees. These are some points of attention about the environmental conditions during pollination. But of course there are a lot of more points where you have to take care of, but these are the most common and important points. Any questions about this?
I have a question about this carbon monoxide values. What is this DPM, 2,500 DPM?
Yeah.
Is it some kind of percentage of how much carbon monoxide you have or dioxide you have in the air?
Yes. Dots per million.
Parts per million?
Yeah, that's a value of how many CO2 there is.
So it's commonly used in greenhouses, this kind of value, or?
No, I don't hope so, because the bees are days then. But if you have an heater, we have different types of heating the greenhouses. It could be done by hot water, of course. That's the normal way. But there are also greenhouses, they used hot air heaters, and they used mostly gas to burn the heaters. And during burning the gas, the CO2 values are coming in the greenhouse. And if they are too high, above the 2,500 dots per million, it could be poison for the bees.
So it's I don't know if it's. I don't know this kind of. Does anyone listeners know what is this DPM? Should it be ppm?
Yes.
Yeah, it's also called parts per million, ppm. That's what you mean. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So don't place your beehives directly near the hot air heaters. That will prevent a lot of trouble. So if it's possible, place your bees between two hot air heaters. Then the values are not so high anymore.
Okay.
This will be diluted then.
Claude, you had something to add.
I have a question about pesticides. You mentioned that maybe residue in the seedlings. How can you tell, and what can you do about it?
It's a separate part on one of the next. Yeah, it's the next subject. It's called crop protection. So I will come back on that part, Claude.
Okay.
Any other questions about the environmental conditions?
There was earlier in this chat box question about that is do bees used for greenhouse pollination also go outside? I had understood that they do not go outside. At least the return had been difficult to my understanding in our project. But you said that they go out, but they can come in if you. The problem is sometimes that if you open the windows on the roof, for example, if the greenhouse is too hot, you have to open them. But if you close them and bees have not come back yet, so they can how do you be closed out?
Yeah, of course the grower is taking care of his plants, not taking care of the bees, and that's the problem. So you can imagine if the sun is shining during the day, the greenhouse is opened on the top to get more fresh air inside and to prevent that the temperature is too high inside the greenhouse. But let's say at 3-4 o'clock, the bees are also going in and outside the greenhouse, not only pollination the flowers in the greenhouse, but also looking for something else which may be more interested outside the greenhouse. That's also possible. So anyway, bees are also flying outside. And of course, that's also good for us because the bees need the variation of pollen. But what you can imagine what happened if it's raining in let's say during the daytime, or the temperature is dropping very quickly. What happened is that the grower will close the windows, but still bees are outside and they are lost because everything is closed. So we always take care that 1 or 2 of the windows near the beehive is always opened, not widely, but let's say half. And the bees have always the possibility, if it's raining or the temperature is a little bit low, they can also go inside the greenhouse looking for their hive and come back.
So they find it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you think that it's not a big problem normally that you lose bees outside the greenhouse?
You always lose a little bit of bees, but you should prevent, of course, that the grower is closing the windows and the half of your colony is outside.
Okay.
And of course, during winter period, the windows are closed, so there are no bees outside. It's too cold, but in summertime or spring, it could be a situation that the windows are open to close during the daytime, and that will be prevent that the bees are coming in inside again. And for that reason, we ask always to open 1 or 2 windows near the beehives in that period.
Okay.
Other questions about environmental conditions? Okay, then about crop protection, chemical and biological. I'm not sure how it is in Finland, but in Holland we use also a lot of biological crop protection. That's done by all types of insects, and those insects, they eat the aphids and the thrips and the spider mites and the white flies and all that kind of stuff. And that also prevented the growers to spray with pesticides. Of course, that's what we also happy about, because it don't attack our bees and it's not poisoned for our bees. But in the past, most crop protection products were poisoned for bees. That's the old situation. But nowadays, this is not always the case anymore. The so-called integratable agents, IPM, are often not toxic for bees and are not toxic after drying. So that's the difference. They are not directly toxic, or if it's dry, it's not toxic again. And this also has to do within the biological control agents that are used in the most greenhouse crops. So that's the control agents are the insects which are put inside the greenhouse to attack the pests. We divided those chemical crop protection in 3 parts: non-toxic and limited toxicity and toxic. The non-toxic, for instance, is Basilicus thuringiensis. They used against caterpillars, for instance. We call it here Turex and Xanthari and Dipal. But also Pyridalil. It's known in Holland as Nocturne. That's also against caterpillars, but also against thrips. But they are not toxic for bees, so it can be used in a combination with beehives in the greenhouse and to spray Nocturne or to spray Turex. We've also crop protection, like limited toxicity, like Pericarp. It's an old pest, insecticide, and it's known in Holland as Perimor. And if it's dry, it's not toxic anymore for bees, but if the flowers are wet, like Pericarp, it's poisoned. So what we do if a grower wants to spray with Pericarp against aphids, specific against aphids, we close the beehives, and they can. We don't have to remove them from the greenhouse. We only have to close it after flying. So that's in the early morning, in dark, or in the evening. Then he can spray the Pericarp, and mostly after 10-12 hours it's dry again. We can open the beehives again. That's also for the amamectine. It's called here Vetimax, and it's also no longer toxic after 48 hours. It's not 10 or 12 hours, 48 hours. So that's something more poisoned than the Pericarp. And then what we are doing is in summer, we remove the beehives from the greenhouse and put them in outside. No, we don't put them outside. We put them in the call it stable. In the barn. We put them in the barn, closed. We put the house closed in the barn for 2 days, and after 2 days we put them back exactly on the same location. So, as you know, bees are very good orientated. So don't change 2 beehives with each other. If they're coming for a specific location in the greenhouse, you have to put them on the same location back again, and don't switch them with the neighbors, because otherwise you have a problem. And so after 2 days you can put them back and open again the beehives. And of course we have also a third group, the toxic pesticides like the deltamethrin, that will be poisoned for at least 5 days. For some agents it can be poisoned 3 months, but for bees we mostly count 5 days. But also one of the old pesticides like metiocarb is no longer allowed in Holland to use. It was 30 days poisoned for bees and bumblebees. And of course we have a long list about all those pesticides, fungicides, pesticides, acaricides. There are complete lists of them, and you can look inside those lists if they are toxic or non-toxic or limited toxic for bees. And you can find them in the so-called side effect list. Those side effects list will be produced by companies such as BioBest or Koppert. Those companies manufacture the agents against pesticides, against pests, and they also make those tests how poisoned those pesticides are for their own agents and also for their own bumblebees. And the bumblebees is in most situations vergelijkbaar with the honeybees. Comparable with the honeybees. I have to look for that. I can imagine that there are questions about this.
I have one. In 1 hour experiment greenhouse, the farmer used this sulfur during nights. The sulfur destroyed some fungi in strawberries. Do you use this in Netherlands also?
What's the name of it?
Sulfur. I think I just checked.
Sulfur. Yeah. Sulfur. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
In most situations, sulfur it's used as a fungicide against mildew. And there are 2 types of mildew, but it's used for the real mildew, we call it. If it's used limited, it's not poisoned for bees. But if they apply it also in different ways, they can heat it, so there's a gas coming from the heaters which apply a very, very thin layer on the strawberries to prevent that mildew is growing. And mostly we ask to use it limited, only if necessary. So the heater of or for sulfur needs at least 3 till 4 hours to heat up to apply a little layer of sulfur on the plants. And we ask the growers to use it not every night, but only 3 or 4 evenings, nights, and no longer than 6 hours. It's also not so good, the sulfur, for the biological agents. So also those have a problem with the sulfur. But it can be used with bees, but only if it's not if it's only when it's limited.
Do you have something better to recommend to the grower to use instead that is less harmful to the bees?
Yeah, sulfur is very cheap. It's easy, it's unlimited, and so most growers want to use sulfur, but there are a lot of other fungicides which is also possible. One is Luna privilege, and it also have the benefit that it works for 5 weeks. It also prevent that mildew botrytis is growing on the fruit. That's also a possibility.
I have a question about when you close up the beehives. I'm assuming you have screened bottom boards so that they have ventilation when they're closed. But can you really close a hive like for a day without overheating or the bees panicking inside the hive that they can't get out? Or even for 2 days when you put them in a barn?
Yeah, of course, because bees don't panic. That's one. They only panic when you transport them in a car on a rough highway, let's say, and they are hubbing and bunking in the backside of your car. They don't like that. But no, because during winter period the bees are also not flying for a long period, so that's not a problem. But of course they need enough ventilation. So the screen bottom is in that's correct. We have a metal screen bottom under all our beehives, which is closed during winter time when they are outside, but it's always open during summer or during pollination. Also when they are standing in a normal situation in the greenhouse. So if the beehive is removed from the greenhouse to the barn for 2 days, it's always opened. And of course the bees need enough food. But normally you have always enough food in the beehive because there are a lot of sugar syrup or Fonda bee or candiopole or honey, and that's no problem. But the temperature of the barn is also important, because if the barn is too hot, you have a possibility that the beehives will overheat it. That's true. So during summer period, the temperature of the surrounding of the temperature in the barn shall be not higher than 15 degrees Celsius.
What about the ones that you only close for 1 day in the greenhouse, if it's hot in the greenhouse and the hive is closed?
Yeah, that's also a situation that you have to remove the beehives then. If it is too hot in the greenhouse, you don't close the beehives then when they are standing then in the greenhouse in the sun. It's not possible. You also have to remove them for only 10 hours to the barn. Yeah. But you also can lay a thin layer of styropor on the top of the beehive to prevent direct sun. That's what we also doing always in a normal situation, because as you know, the bees don't like if they're standing in the full sun, and in the greenhouse temperature is rising sometimes to 35 degrees, 37 degrees Celsius, and that's not always, the bees are not always happy with that temperature. So we put always a plate of styropor, no, not styropor, how do you call it, the plastic, the white plastic with the bumbles.
Do you charge a better price to growers who do not use poisons that cause you this extra work? Or do you charge more to the ones who do use the poisons?
Yeah. Styrofoam, that's the name.
Oh, yeah.
You put a plate of styrofoam on the top of the beehives. It's white, so the color is also is good, and it prevents direct heating up of the beehives. About the price, no, we don't. We know a grower don't use pesticides because they like it. They use it because it's necessary. So we don't give them a better price if they don't use it. No. We always look for a solution together. I always want that he called me when he uses a pesticide, and I look if it's the correct pesticide, and maybe there is an alternative pesticide to use. Because for caterpillars you have a very large scale of different pesticides, and like the Basilicus thuringiensis, they're not poisoned. They are very good. Maybe they have to use that more often than the synthetic chemical pesticides, but that's something you can discuss with the grower and look for a solution. And that's also one of the points which is discussed during the pollination course, what we discussed before. Always looking for a solution together with the grower. Okay, more questions about this?
Sorry, my computer decided to shut down just this the whole old speech about the pesticides, but I can listen it later. But anyway, I would like to ask: are growers using pre-stop mix? What we are using in Finland? Do you know this?
Yeah, Prestop. Yeah. Yeah, we use this here also. Is it from Lalleman, I believe? Prestop, yeah, we have it. 1 kilo. Oh, it's acre style. Yeah. It's a fungus, the Prestop.
Yes,
yeah, we use it also. It's called biocide. It's safe. And yeah, they use it also.
Mm-hmm. So can you see any problems or benefits for that one? Is it
Right. It's a Gliocladium Prestop fungus. It's against Botrytis, Mycosporella, Rhizoctonia, and Pythium. And it's not poison for bees. You can use it, no problem. Is that the answer to your question, Marita?
I can't now find any other questions. Yes.
Okay. Shall we then go to the last part, or is there somebody else who has a question about crop protection? Okay, we go then to the last part, the finance. Can you describe the finance around greenhouse beekeeping? What are your biggest costs? How much is a gardener pays for bee pollination, etc.? The highest cost for every pollination colony, you have to calculate 2 spare colonies are needed. So if you have a grower which is using 1 or 2, let's say 2 colonies, you have to have 4 extra colonies as backup. And that has to do because all the colonies, the most colonies will be changed after 3 weeks pollination. So that's the first one. And for instance, let's say that there is something happening, the bees get too warm, windows are closed, they're spraying by pesticides and the bee colony is dead. So you have to have a spare extra. And that's the reason. So for every pollination hive, you have to have two spare hives with bees. That's one of the highest costs. And of course, transport cost. People, the inspection time you need every 2 weeks. Feeding the bees during pollination with the Candepoline or Apifonda. It's the most highest cost. And the income, what we count in Holland, is 40 euros exclusive VAT per colony per week. And that's not too much, but that's enough for us. And of course, there's a difference in if pollination is in the greenhouse or is done outside. Outside, apples and pears and cherries. Mostly we count for the whole period, for the whole apple or pear or cherry period. That's mostly 2-3 weeks maximum. We count 80 euros, not per week, but for the complete period. That's exclusive transport costs. But in the greenhouse is mostly between 40-45 euros per week per colony. And of course, there's also a difference if a grower uses only 2 colonies. They pay more than if somebody has 30 colonies, because we have also growers that uses 30 colonies for their strawberries or raspberries or something else. They pay something less. What kind of agreement beekeepers and farmers, growers have? Do we have any recommendation about the price? No, about the price I discussed before. As discussed last week, in Holland you pay in early spring 125 euros per colony. That's of course exclusive the hive, but that's only the bees. And in Finland, somebody told me you pay 375 euros per colony. So that's the triple in price as in Holland. So I can imagine also you have, as the grower, have to pay 3 times more as in Holland. So that will be then in your country 120 euros per week per colony in a greenhouse. About the agreement, yeah, of course we have also agreement. That's possible, an agreement on paper. During our pollination course, it's also discussed, and everybody can see what's in and what's out. It's also talking about the cost and about transport cost. It's talking about use of pesticides and that kind of stuff. But in practice, it's mostly a verbal agreement. You know the grower mostly for a long period, and we don't put anything on paper then. And I don't have had any problems. Yeah, only once somebody don't want to pay, but that's another reason. There's nothing to do with the bees or the quality of the bees or the quality of the fruit. What about the cost for building a special shelf where the colony hives are placed in the greenhouse? As I said before, we don't place the beehives under the crops. We place it on the same high as the flowers or just above the crops. And that's the shelf, the special shelf, which is discussed here. To make this, the shelves, mostly they made from metal or a combination metal or wood. And mostly those costs of €100, 50% is for the grower, 50% is for the beekeeper, and the ownership stays at the beekeeper. So after 2 or 3 years, if the grower don't want to use the services anymore of the beekeeper can keep the shelf. Are there any questions about this subject, about benefits and costs and financial?
In the chat box there is a question and comment, and that what would you expect the pricing model to be in Finland? Greenhouse pollination is new. The conservative mindset of greenhouse grower is one challenge, but the biggest issue will be the extreme variation in spring and autumn. Sometimes spring arrives in April and lasts only 2 days. Before that, there has been frost. Other times, spring starts in February and continues into April, staying around 5 degrees Celsius. The description regarding extreme variations in spring and autumn refers specifically to southern Finland, more precisely than Turku area. We already received an answer to the financial question, so we can skip that topic from now on. Okay. So it's well, I think that we have to find the way here by thinking about and maybe people can change the pricing. I don't know if you have same prices all beekeepers in Holland. Do the beekeepers make an agreement that everybody can make the agreement with the grower? It's the agreement with them two of them.
Everybody can make an agreement with the grower. It's not arranged by the government. Everybody is free. And of course, there are also so-called hobby imkers. They are not professional beekeepers. And they have 10 bee colonies, and they know somebody who is a grower. And he says, can you bring some of your colonies? And they make their own agreement. Sometimes it's outside in the cherries, and the beekeeper don't ask any financial income for it. They say it's only the honey is sufficient for me. But if there is a problem, that is the parts where the problems are raised between not professional beekeepers. And today they have 5 colonies, and next year every colony is dead because of the varroa or something else, and the grower don't have any bees, and that's the difference. The grower has to count on the beekeeper, on the professional beekeeper, that the bees are available and they are healthy, and if they call me to bring the bees tonight, I bring the bees tonight. And I expect that he has to pay a reasonable price for it. And if there's a problem, we can solve that together.
Yes, it's a service.
Yeah, it's a service two ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I see also a lot of problems for using bees in Finland, because you have a very, very long winter period. And that brings me to a next subject what I was thinking about last week. Sometimes we are bringing our bees to the south of France. So we're bringing bees from Holland to the south of France. And the reason is because the climate in the south of France is much better in winter period than in Holland. Our temperature during winter period is mostly specialized. The last years it's mostly about 8 or 10 degrees minus for a few days, maybe 2 weeks, and that's it. We don't have any more white Christmases In the early days, we have often a white Christmas, but these days not. But we also bringing bees to the south of France. And why? We do that because sometimes we need, the bees are coming in a late period out of the greenhouses during, they were used then in the cymbidiums. Cymbidium is an orchid, which is grown as an ornamental flower, and they produce a lot of nectar outside the flowers, and on that sweet substance there is a fungus growing, and it will give less nice flowers. And the bees are so used not for pollination on that flowers, but they are used to pick up the sweet juice of the flowers to prevent that the fungus is growing on the flowers. And that will happen during the period August till October. So the bees which are coming from those orchids, from those cymbidiums, are coming late in a late period out of the greenhouses, and it's mostly only for a few weeks. And what we are doing then is bringing the bees to the south of France, not only 10 or 2 beehives, of course, but with big trucks, we're bringing, let's say, 200 or 300 beehives to the south of France. And we have somebody there and who is taking care of our beehives. And during the next year in the spring, they're coming back healthy and well again as a strong bee colony. Maybe we can do something like that for Finland in Holland, because we have not so very cold winters anymore. Maybe it's beneficial to bring to Finland during early year, let's say March or April, let's say 100 beehives to Finland. That could be also a solution. And you can use those 100 beehives for pollination in the greenhouses. I'm not sure if that's possible in a logistic way, because here in Holland we have big areas with a lot of greenhouses. And I can imagine that will be something else in Finland. Maybe one city has 2 growers and the next city 300 kilometers further has only 1 grower. Maybe it's not possible then, but that's something you have to discuss between your Finnish beekeepers.
Yes, we have to plan this, and because the need for pollination service in how many growers we have. So it's I think that at the moment it's we can manage locally if it's just I think that the biggest problem is that the growers maybe it's new for them to take or ask honeybees to do the pollination, and I'm sure that it will work, but it needs some discussion and learning, and both growers and both beekeepers.
Yeah. And if the Finnish beekeepers or growers want to visit Holland again, like we did last year, it's always possible, eh, Marita? You know that.
Yes, thank you. Yes, of course. We will organize trip. So it's very good to see with your own eyes all those things.
Yeah.
And we can learn more.
And maybe there's a possibility that I visit Finland.
Yes, that would be great.
Or we meet next year in Copenhagen, be at the Apiomonda.
Yes. We are planning a group trip to Apiemondia.
Yeah.
So what about you in Holland? Is there coming a lot of people to Apiemondia? What do you think about?
No, this year, since a few weeks, we with our professional beekeepers organization, we are now a member of the European professional beekeepers, It's called the EPBA.
EPB.
Yeah. And they had their meeting this year at Friedrichshafen in Germany. It's the south of Germany. It's all 900 kilometers for me to drive by car, but that's too far. And they have the meeting, and it was during a bee congress with producers of bee material. Now we are also a member of the EPBA. Are you also a member of the EPBA in Finland?
Yes, Finnish Beekeepers Association is a member of EPBA. So we have then I don't know. Probably our representative have been there in Germany. I'm not sure about it. I haven't checked it.
Yeah. But there is these days there is a lot of concerns about the honey prices. Maybe you know that.
Yes.
Especially Bernard from Germany is very angry on the Chinese producers of honey, because a lot of that honey isn't real honey. It's not from flowers. It's not from bees. It's synthetic made of they're called maize syrup with genetically changed bacteria, and they make a kind of honey, and they dump it on the European market for crazy prices, and so the beekeepers don't sell the real honey anymore. They only pay €1.5 euro per kilogram honey. And of course, that's not enough. So they have a lot of problems in Europe with the honey. We don't see that problem in Holland because the big honey packages still pays any beekeeper who has honey around €6 per kilogram. That's not bad, but that will be sufficient for the most beekeepers.
It's quite good price it's around €5 in Finland is per kilo the packers are paying for. But this autumn we just don't know yet the price, but it's normally something around €5, maybe a little bit more than.
Yeah. But I see another problem in this, that if there are, because of the lower honey prices, a lot of beekeepers will stop in other countries. They don't see that the problem will be bigger, because the pollination, there are not any honey colonies available, any bee colonies available for pollination. And that's a more important business than honey. I told you before that will be only for Holland more than 2.4 billion euros per year, only from honeybees. And that will be for France, I'm sure, much more, because in France there are also a lot of pollination bees necessary. And if the honey beekeepers will stopping with keeping the bees, that also have will be have a negative result for the pollination beekeepers.
So the pollination service is a big business for beekeepers in France and Holland. Yeah,
much more important than honey.
Honey. Okay.
Yeah, 10% of our food is 10% of our food is done by pollination, by honeybees and bumblebees and solitary bees. So it's very big business. And we also make a note to Brussels to make them attend of this very important business, pollination. Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. No, I suggest then we start eating. because I have to start my dinner tonight.
Okay, you haven't ate your dinner.
Yeah, okay. Shall we have then contact one of these days, Marita and Anna? Maria?
Yeah, let's be in contact.
Okay,
Of
if
course.
there are any additional questions or so, we can solve that then. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much and have a
Yes.
nice evening.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Martin.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.